Okay, we are live. It is 7 a.m. where I am, and I have the most ghetto setup in my hotel room. I have my phone. It's sitting on top of what is this? A rice cooker? Um, One of those things to boil water. I forget what they're called now.
Kettle?
But what?
Electric kettle? Electric kettle.
A kettle. Yeah, that's it. That's what my phone is sitting on top of in this little itsy bitsy table. So we're thriving. We're thriving, Roy.
All right. That's
You
quite
guys
the
are gonna you guys are gonna witness me eating a Japanese egg McMuffin on camera in real time. So that's
Is
gonna
it any
be
different than the States McDonald's?
honestly, if I'm being entirely honest, I think it's a little bit better in the States.
Oh, okay.
Probably more grease or whatnot. All these like healthy ingredients here.
Yeah,
Um,
grease makes it good.
yeah, which is crazy because all the food that I've had here is overwhelmingly amazing, and I've just been gorging on sushi and ramen and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
Surprisingly, the McDonald's is lower quality, and I've ordered different things off the menu every day, like every morning, because I'm still adjusting to the sleep schedule, and I wake up at like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., and that's the only thing that's open, and it's not as great, honestly. I don't, breakfast is not. I haven't figured that part out yet, like
Yeah.
what I should have for breakfast at a place that's open before 7.
I've heard that, and maybe it's not true, but that their convenience stores, like I think they have 7-Eleven there, are actually like really, really good. So that might be an
Yeah,
option.
that's the other thing. I haven't done the Family Mart breakfasts. That's the
Yeah.
convenience store. But they have all kinds of stuff here. It's crazy, dude. They have like um, hot sections in the convenience store and then cold sections, and I didn't figure it out until I touched something and it was like scalding, and it was like a can of black coffee. Um, it's just craziness.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm glad it's not 7 a.m. here. But glad you're having a good time over in Japan, and hope you continue to enjoy it.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean it's Tuesday here.
and whose office was it that you saw over in Japan again?
So I went to the BuzzFeed office, and there happened to be this small company there that they're sponsoring. It seems, um, and somebody commented it. And I found it funny. I wasn't gonna poke at it, um, but so I went to Palantir's office. I just stumbled across it while exploring, and they share an office space with BuzzFeed and WeWork, like the two biggest shitco's out there, and Palantir. They all share that office, and then you have 3 floors that entire building, or 4 floors that are just empty.
Yeah, it's basically Bitcoin and then dog with hat and maybe Dogecoin, although that's maybe giving BuzzFeed too much credit. So
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, I don't know. It was a really cool building actually, and it's a great part of town. So that area was like a very high end shopping area. Didn't expect to see Palantir there, but I'm glad I did. That post got like a lot of attention. It got a lot of traction. I don't like. I would like to think I have some good Sofi posts from time to time, and it's tough for me to get that kind of traction. And meanwhile, I just posted the randomest Palantir video, and it
oh
gets
yeah,
a lot of views.
yeah, 18K. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but Palantir, we are a cult. So you may not have realized that yet, Tevis. But
Yeah, exactly.
well,
It's crazy.
tonight we'll not talk too much Palantir. That might be it. But we got a few different topics to talk about. Before we maybe jump in and talk about some Robinhood stuff, we'll talk about one that we have in common, Tesla. So you watched with Tanner and never even invited me or thought of me. No, just kidding. For the Tesla Robotax, but we've not really talked about it since then. So maybe I think briefly I mentioned it, but what were your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on Tesla like heading into earnings? As earnings are this week.
So I didn't realize earnings. This is how much in vacation mode I am. I didn't realize that earnings were this week until it was too late. And when I sold covered calls on Tesla, I accidentally sold them over earnings week.
Oh, brother.
because I thought it was going to be the following week, not this one coming up.
Oh
So
man.
I hope it
Well,
does well, but at the same time, not so well. But yeah. My covered calls are like way out though. They're like 260, 265, which
yeah.
when I did a pod with TJ, he said it's like having sex with clothes on, like the level of action that you're getting with those covered calls because you're so far out. So I don't think I'm going to get hit. But if I do, then I do. And like that was the agreement that I made going into it. But
Did you sell it on all of your shares or just a portion?
about half.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I like to do that when I have a larger position, just kind of stagger it for some safety. I didn't do that with Palantir this time. But yeah, one thing you need to know, and if anyone else is listening to, like that, I'm not the person to like listen to for covered call expert or anything, but know when earnings is or when major catalysts are. So, for instance, the robotaxi event was a major catalyst. It could have been to the upside. It certainly was to the downside. S&P 500 inclusion for Palantir, that's when I sat out completely, just because that was a catalyst. And I didn't feel like that the IV was where it needed to be for that sort of event to appreciate the risk, the upside risk. And of course, a lot of people got blown up. So yeah, some earnings times like, and actually this is one where Tesla, I'm sitting out completely as far like I have my shares. I'm not selling any covered calls. I was thinking about selling a cash secured put. I mean, it's a good chunk of money. So I don't, it would be the amount of Tesla I'd like to have, like more than that. If I did multiple, it would be more than I would want to have. So, um, and I'm a little bit more bearish in the last 2 days on Tesla than I have been. So, but as far as why, you may have seen my post or may have seen some other posts as well. They put out another free trial for at least a lot of folks. I don't know if it's everybody. Hopefully it is for 12.5. Well, actually, no, for full self driving. And the weird thing was, that was when I was in Miami for the Robinhood Summit. And so I'm like, that's cool. I'll try it out. Probably that means that the car has 12.5.4. Instead, it was the older version of full self driving that I already tried a few months ago. And I'm like, well, that's like nice. And I like it, but that's really underwhelming. Like I was hoping to try out this new version that everybody is raving about. So, well, the nice thing is my wife activated it and she was using it. And then 12.54 came out. And so I'm like, great, new version with specifically the smart summoning. Now, have you seen anybody play with the smart summoning, Tevis?
No,
Do you? Well, let me ask you this: like you know about it, right? Like what it's supposed to do and how it works, or
more or
do you
less.
how important do you think that feature is?
Um, I mean, I don't because I don't have a car. I don't drive a Tesla, right? So I would say not that important, but the way you phrased it, it sounds more important than it actually is.
It's so I'll have like two minds with it. So for robo taxis, they have to handle parking lots well. This gives them more training data, and it helps whatever they've done with it. It works. I've been careful to try it. Like we have a super busy HEB, a local grocery store that has like it's full all the time, and people walking left and right, not paying attention. So I'm like, I'm not going to try it there because if it murders somebody, then that's on me. Lowe's, there's fewer people. There weren't as many, but there were still people around. And I had it around a corner where I couldn't even see it, and had it come and pick myself and my daughter up. And there were like it turned heads. Like people were looking at it like, "Wow! Like what in the world is going on?" And there was like a truck that you could tell the driver was like trying to figure out like who's driving this car. It was great. I felt like a Cybertruck owner for a minute, like just getting all this attention. And it worked flawlessly. We did it at another local restaurant. If you're too close, it doesn't come. And also where I work, we did that, and I showed it off to some people, and they were all very impressed, and I thought it worked really well. Um, but it's kind of niche. Like you wouldn't buy full self driving for that. I don't think. And it's not fast. Like it's very cautious, which it should be. But that part I like. And it's the newest toy, so I wanted to try that out. But I've heard all these rave reviews, even from people that are normally a little bit skeptical on full self driving. And I loved the previous version. I thought it was amazing. I was like, wow, they're actually getting very, very close. I would have drives of like an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours with maybe one disengagement just to be cautious, and sometimes not even that. Today, well, and even yesterday, a lot more disengagements on the drive home. Just got here like maybe 20 minutes before this started. I had 4 disengagements in about 20 minutes. Enough that I'm like, that's enough full self driving for the day. I'm good. Um, it had several that I think would have been wrecks. Well, one that I think would have been a wreck. And then so I maybe not, like you never know, but I'm going to be on the side of caution there. It has difficulty merging for whatever reason. There's a lane it needs to get over to. It usually full self driving kind of waits until last moment to get over, and that's fine. It does a good job. And then it was like, well, I need to get over, but it's a solid white line, technically illegal. Like I'm fine with it as long as there's no traffic. Like whatever, I'll do that too as a driver. Everybody does. But then it's like, oh, there's a car somewhat near, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to accelerate and try to get over. And so it tried to do that. And then it turned on its blinker and tried to get over again. And it just wouldn't commit. It was just sitting there. And there was plenty of room. So it hesitated. And finally, I got it over. I took over. I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's running out of road. I had one other time when I was trying to merge that there were construction cones. There was a sign that said you got to merge. It was going to plow through the construction cones. And then it's like, oh man, construction cones, like right there. So it tried to get over, plowing into a car right next to it. I stopped it. I'm like, I don't know what it's doing, but this is horrible. Reporting all these things, of course. I had another actually drive out and the drive back as well, where there are well-marked lanes that they're an only left lane. And the car in previous version recognized them just fine, except for there was one that just wasn't well marked, and it usually missed that one. But that was a previous version. This version, it's like flipping a coin. It's like half the time it's like, oh, I can go straight in this, and I don't know what it'll do if I let it go straight because it's going to hit something or do some illegal maneuver in the intersection. And so instead it like turns left and has to do this awkward U-turn, takes me 10 minutes out of the way. And yeah, just several other issues too. I'm so not impressed with this version. Like if this was my only experience over this last day and a half with full self-driving, I would think that we're like years and years and years away. But I've seen it in its glory with the previous version. And I've seen how people have talked about it. So I don't know what to think, but at least coming in this morning, Monday, I drove around a little bit yesterday with full self driving, and it was not great. It wasn't this bad, but it was not good other than the active smart summoning. So I'm like, you know what? I don't think I want to sell cash secured puts on Tesla this week. Not my position, but it's frustrating, man.
I don't think Tesla is going to live and die by the sort of full self-driving version updates, like from a stock perspective.
Yeah, true.
And we've seen in the past that it oscillates between really, really amazing, where you have no interventions at all, and really, really dog shit. And it's just how they adjust the weights, right? And so that's going to self-correct. They're going to gather feedback, and then they can always revert or they can go back. But in terms of the earnings, one thing that I found was interesting. So I don't know where it's going to go. I think that it might dump on earnings. Maybe it dumps under 200 again. But one thing I found interesting was that they were selling their Bitcoin. I don't know where I saw this on Twitter. Maybe I sent it to you, maybe not. But it seems as though the wallet that was holding Tesla's Bitcoin was selling out of their position. And if somebody in the chat knows, then they can let me know if I'm wrong or right. But if that were to be the case, it's probably to make their financials look much better than they actually are, because we already know that what their delivery numbers came in. And so their delivery numbers missed essentially whatever Wall Street expects. And so if they're selling their Bitcoin, it's probably for them to beat on their actual financials, because it counts as like the profit would log in their financials. I could be wrong on that, but that was just my sort of 2 cent hypothesis there that the beat could be like a financial beat.
Was that in September that you saw that, or October?
I saw that pretty recently. Like I was in Japan, I think, when I saw it. So
Okay,
must have
yeah.
been
Then
last.
in that case, it wouldn't be for this quarter, since the quarter is over September 30th. So maybe
Oh,
for a future quarter, or maybe that they need. They don't need they have a lot of money, but it could be that they just see.
yeah,
You
that's a
know,
good point. Actually.
we might be out of the bull cycle for crypto earlier than many of us anticipate. And they just want to remove that element of risk, because
That's a good point.
when you're printing money and you burn some and light it on fire because you messed up with Bitcoin, and I'm bullish on Bitcoin, that's fine. But they're not in that cycle right now. They're not in that season, and so their mistakes are amplified. So that'd be my
Yeah,
guess, just as a hedge.
and that's going to be a great move for them, right? Regardless of whether you're bullish, bearish, or neutral. Like they bought it in the 30s and they sold it in the 60s. Like,
Yeah.
congratulations, Tesla, for doubling your money. Because a lot of people were skeptical of it, but like then again, a lot of people see it as a very positive move because they're bullish Tesla and neutral to slightly bearish Bitcoin, or they're skeptical about it, let's say. And so the stock psychologically in the short term will have a pump or already had a pump, because this news I think came out before the 10/10 event. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. I don't think that the earnings. I mean, the thing is with companies like Tesla that have monthly numbers, and we don't know the most recent month for September, but we know the others, and also like Robinhood that has monthly metrics other than the most recent one right before earnings. We kind of know what to expect, and so I don't think it'll be a great earnings. But Tesla is not really a stock that trades on fundamentals; it trades on a narrative. I think the
Yeah.
narrative, at least the sense that I got from the Robotaxi event, is those things are a little bit further off than I was hoping as an investor. I think they're coming. I'm not enchanted with the current full self driving, and I may get to a point where oh yeah, there's one other thing. It's the stupidest thing. So previous version of full self driving, I I know it's, at least in Texas, I think it's technically illegal to do this. So hopefully I don't get locked up. But I come to a red light. Red lights can be really, really long just because of the traffic here in Houston. I make sure the car stops behind me. I can't go anywhere. I've got a nice little chime that dings on a green light, whether I'm using full self driving or not. And then I'll pick up my phone and be like, okay, do you have any messages? How's my stock doing? Is there something on X? That sort of thing. If I'm not listening to a podcast or a book or something, sometimes I am. I'm going to do that pretty much no matter what. Previous version of FSC is like, fine, car's not moving, makes sense, you're good. This version's like, okay, we're going to turn on all your flashers, disable your vehicle. You need to take over and you get a strike. And I'm like, the car hasn't moved in a minute. Like, why? What's the purpose of that? It's so frustrating. But I'm still bullish Tesla. If it falls under 200, I'll begin to add on to that position. It's about where I wanted it anyway, but I have some room to add some more. But yeah, I actually sold some going into the Robotaxi event, so that turned out like it might be okay. So it was a small bit, but I'll probably add that back here even before earnings.
What do you make of this comment? Compliance or internal audits. Tesla may transfer Bitcoin to meet accounting or legal obligations related to reporting or internal audits. Seems logical since no transfer to Coinbase yet.
I'm not sure what he means.
Like, it sounds to me like they haven't sold. Again, I need to verify this news. But either way, I don't think Tesla's going to be hitting 260 by Friday. I'd be shocked if it does. That's like a 20% move. I'm sure it can. I think the implied volatility for earnings was like 9% or something like that. So that's pretty much going to be, baked in more or less. I mean, if you've ever been to a Tesla earnings, this thing can easily move double digits regardless of the market cap.
And I think they'll have a really good next year. I actually think next year, if not before, but next year may be the time that people begin to realize that Tesla is more than just a car company. I mean, we know this as
Yeah,
investors.
it's a fork in the road. Maybe you can throw that up, Roy.
The fork in the road? Yeah, yeah. Let me see if
I sent that to you on DMs. So basically, Elon got a little literal statue of a fork in the road. And there was a post that he responded to. But the message was that this is. Do you have the post that he's responding to?
let me pull up our DMs. I'll hide that for now, so they don't need to see you ranting and raving about how bad Canada is.
I do that a lot, actually. You guys have this in the States? Maybe you guys in the comments can let me know. Hot apple pie.
We do, yeah. You don't
do?
have that in Canada?
We don't have this in Canada. I don't think we have this in Canada. I haven't been to McDonald's in Canada in a long, long time.
Yeah.
But this thing's great.
Dude, I love McDonald's. I'm not gonna lie. And did you see, by the way, unrelated to Tesla in a second, you saw the Trump
Yeah. Do you mean Donald's?
That was just funny. I thought it was hilarious. So yeah, the best one is the drop the Mick, just Donald's. It's cleaner. Did he actually say that? I'm guessing that's just a meme. So
no, it's just a meme, dude. But like, did McDonald's have a pump today? Actually, let me see.
I'm actually
because I own that stock.
I'm still looking for that fork post. I know you sent it to me, but let me scroll through your.
Let me find it for you.
Yeah, regardless, I guess we don't need necessarily the fork in the road post, but
I got it.
Okay, yeah, go and pull it up then.
Here, can you throw this up? Because I'm only on one screen today, so I'm gonna fuck something up for sure. I'm throwing it in the private chat on StreamYard.
Okay.
And then we can read through that while I eat this in real time. So it's been a while since I ate sushi on stream, so I gotta give the people something, you know. Japan still have the Squid Ink burgers. I don't know, but I need to try that. Where would I get that? Because I will definitely try that. Yeah, so on Japan, just before we throw that up, I wanted to. So I'm taking a lot of just footage, and there's a lot of observations. It's my first time in Asia, and I've been to a lot of countries in Europe actually, and then I lived in Latin America for a while, and so I've seen quite a bit. But Asia is just a whole nother planet, and because I have all of this footage, and I wanted to start to make content on it, so I think what I'm gonna do is just make a Twitter thread of just like, hey, these are cool things that I'm seeing. And so I'm just planning that out, but coming soon.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see that. Japan's one of those places, especially with the yen, where it is relative to the US dollar. Canadian dollar, probably not, but maybe. Like it's always been a fairly expensive place to travel to, but like full of all sorts of different wonders and tech gadgets and natural beauty and history. Like it's an amazing culture. So the wife and I would like to go. Although the sad thing is she wants to go to like Disney Japan. And I'm like, honey, yeah. I'm sure that's great too. But like, let's go to some of the other places. So go ahead and throw up that fork in the road post. And I'll read this while you munch on your breakfast. You've seen Elon carrying a sink into Twitter, making a visual pun. Let that sink in now. We have a 20-foot high fork in the road right in front of the newly added section to Giga, Texas for the drone shot. Credit to them. Why? The newly added section contains Tesla's new multi-billion-dollar supercomputer that will be used to train autonomous cars and robots. Elon is visually telling us that Tesla, this $700 billion market cap company, is pivoting away from being an EV manufacturer to being an autonomy manufacturer. I don't think that people have truly grasped the implications of this. Hence, Elon's fork in the road and Tesla's 1010 We Robot event. Let me paint a picture of what the other direction and the other fork in the road would have looked like. After the Model 3Y, Tesla could have decided to turn into the GM of EVs, broadening out their product line, bringing out traditional SUVs, small, medium, large, and lots of cars in the 40 to 60 price segment. Honestly, that's what I expected and hoped that they would do too. Many billions of dollars would have been spent building new factories. Margins would have been compressed in the end. You'd be fighting tooth and nail against non-profitable Chinese EV makers. I'll remind you that GM's market cap is $55 billion versus Tesla's $700. In Pennsylvania yesterday, Elon said Tesla wouldn't succeed without solving autonomy, and he's looking directly at the market cap disparity when saying that. I'm not sure about that, but sure, Tesla could become the GM of EVs, and at 1/10 of the market cap, no shareholder would call that a success. Hence the complete pivot, another other pivot towards autonomy. So, what does this bold new path at the fork of the road look like? Nothing less than the reshaping of all vehicle transportation. Do not make the mistake of thinking Cybercab is just an Uber or Lyft competitor nibbling away at their market share. Oh no. This is the obliteration of that market and then an obliteration of the rest of the vehicle market. That two-seater Cybercab is cute and all, functional. 85% of vehicle drives have 1 to 2 people in them. But the only thing that matters about that is the price per mile, 50 cents per mile compared to $2 to $3 for Uber. That's market obliteration. The obliteration, the kind that Tevis did to that apple pie. The future is painted during the Weber Robot event was one where car ownership isn't a thing anymore. There are so many robotaxis around that hailing one is trivial and convenient. People will literally install wireless car chargers and they're now useless driveways. I don't think this is true. So just so cybercabs and robovans can charge there, ready to be rented out by the homeowner. Robovans will be customized as RVs complete with toilets, or a mobile office complete with toilets, not compete, or a mobile office with coffee makers and desks. Driving 2 hours to a meeting will be productive as you sit with your RoboVan desk with a big screen and Starlink internet. With a robotic taxi, you don't feel rushed loading and unloading your vehicle. There's no driver whose time you're wasting. I actually like that a lot. Not wasting people's time. Not like, oh, I love wasting people's time. Teenagers, and this is very, very true. This is actually a great point because I had some that were recently teenagers, they're 20 years old, are already not getting driver's licenses. Mine were a little bit late to that. In 95, about 64% of the 16 to 19 had their licenses, but by 2021, that number had fallen to 40%. Currently, Uber Lyft isn't as cheap as loaning a car that you drive regularly, but as at Cybercab prices, it will be. Tesla has chosen a different path, no less dramatic than Apple chose when it pivoted towards handhelds away from the desktop PCs as their core product. If successful, Elon will completely reshape all vehicle transportation. Remember, Tesla semi-trucks are coming too. I'll expand more on what that looks like in future posts. Visionary leaders like Elon and Jensen of NVIDIA see things much earlier than anyone else. Jensen created CUDA in 2006, which enabled researchers to use GPUs to revolutionize AI, and Jobs pivoted Apple towards mobile devices in the early 2000s. And this is a similar thrust.
Amazing. I did not read that whole thing in as detail as you did. The thing that I want to highlight there is like Elon interacted with it. You know, he commented on it and didn't necessarily disprove it. You know, I think that them being a more dynamic, like the perception of Tesla shifting towards a more robotics company will come with a new multiple, will come with new growth prospects, will come with a whole new narrative. And Tesla's traded historically so strongly on this narrative. And I've said this in the past, you know, that narrative used to be entirely around gigafactories and delivery numbers and new models. And I think that Optimus will be the first real product that sort of changes that perception of a car company. But also full self-driving will completely change their multiple because it changes their revenue structure entirely. If they're getting, you know, a subscription or if they're getting a small take off of every trip or however they're structuring it, then all of a sudden you have this multiple that's not entirely based on the unit sales. Because right now, a lot of people who are arguing for Tesla being more dynamic than a car company from a financial perspective is simply because of the take rate of full self-driving. Like no other car company has these over-the-air updates where I can just buy a car and then 3 years later I can download this package for, you know, 12 grand or whatever it is now. And that's the, you know, almost pure profit to Tesla. Imagine now when they have a robo-taxi where they're taking, you know, $1 off of every ride that their, you know, cars are doing. So it's interesting. And I think that it's going to fuel a lot of bulls for Tesla, but at the same time, it's so far out that I'm not pricing anything like that in. I think the bull case for the company in the short to medium term is still like um, improving margins as rates continue to come down. More unit sales, demand's going to pick up, like pretty tangible things that we already know about. All of this stuff that this post highlights is directionally great, but
Mhm.
realistically very far out.
Yeah, the Model Y refresh, which I expect probably similar to the Model 3 refresh. They don't say anything about it, but you see increasing deals on the current Y. And then they start selling the refresh maybe in January of next year. It may be a little bit later than that. That is going to be massive for Tesla. I'm very tempted to buy one for us. Uh, they have a lot of tailwinds with interest rates. In the energy sector, interest rates help some there. Megapacks, it doesn't really matter as much, but for commercial, not commercial, residential installs, it's really, really impactful. But even more so is how energy is just continuing to be in higher and higher demand. Partly that's a thrust from AI. We've seen a lot of shift and move, which I think is really good, towards uranium and nuclear power plants. They're going to hit a point where they're capped out. I think there's one more reactor that they can easily restart. Uh, Otherwise, like they just have to build new plants, and it's not the solution for the energy needs is not simply a just build nuclear plants. Like there's going to hopefully be a lot of that and expansion as well, that's done well and safely here in the States. But they'll also be looking for energy from other sources, and that's where megapacks come in. It's just to be even more efficient for a company with their energy. So I think that there's some pretty massive tailwinds coming in that sector. And so I think that right there, that energy piece is what gets Tesla recognized this year as that continues to grow and actually even accelerates. As more than just a car company. Now, what I really like about this post, and I think Farzad maybe interacted with it here a couple of days ago. I don't know that he quoted it directly or anything, but he had this really good piece, which I won't read because it's too long, but on Tesla being a company that sells the most valuable commodity, and that's time. And I see that. I see that pivot coming. I see that, and that's actually part of the reason why we chose Tesla. Is I don't like high maintenance things. Like there's some really nice cars out there that take ridiculous levels of maintenance. I had a friend today that picked me up for lunch, and it was a classic like 1939 Ford something. I don't know. It's a classic car. He's put in an incredible amount of work in this vehicle, sold it. People that bought it didn't take care of it. They lost all their money. They sold it back. He's been fixing it up. But like the maintenance on this, even when he gets it all the way fixed up, is very, very high versus Tesla. Like you need new tires. You might rotate them. And then like Tesla's built it out so that they even come to you for that. So like you're good. It's just such a simple car. When full self-driving becomes unsupervised, that's when it becomes real. It gives you that time back on the road. Optimus is likewise wired to that. Cybercab or robotaxi, whatever we're calling it, is likewise wired to that, to giving you back time. And that is the most valuable commodity, and people will absolutely pay for that.
Yeah, instead of typing, I just want to respond to Nate's comment here. He's saying everything Tesla is always 5 years away. These are hyperbole theories, and when are these things coming? And I said, look, the premium of the stock that's built in is the narrative, and it's always going to be in the future because of that narrative. If Tesla were to not have any growth, they would not trade at that premium. If they were to have Toyota level growth or Honda level growth or GM level growth or prospects, they would not trade at the premium that Tesla does. Not to mention the stock's been pretty much flat to down for the past 3 years. And so that narrative is really the difference that you're seeing. And that's the thing that bulls and bears argue about. Nobody's really arguing that the numbers that they're doing today for deliveries and for the margins are going to justify a $700 billion market cap. So, and I get it. Like FSD was promised 7 years ago, but it's not an easy thing to solve, and they only need to solve it once. Like that's the thing. They only need to solve it once, and that company it's a paradigm shift, right? It's something that, and I'm not like blindly defending Tesla. I understand that timelines are important because it affects the CAGR that you could expect off of stock that you buy. I get that. But these are things that are multiple expanders for the company. Like they completely change the prospects that the company can provide. Like if Tesla is the only company, let's say, or even the first company that solves full self-driving, and they start licensing it, or they start doing robo taxis, then 700 billion is going to look like a steal of a deal for this company, right? Even if that's 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 years as late as they've been promising. They only need to solve it once, and I think that's just a counter argument to that, is to say, well, we're talking about really, really big moves, right? You thought it was big when Tesla did whatever, a 10x back in 2020. They've done nothing for 3 years, 4 years. They can do, another shift of that size, but they have to solve some of these big problems first, and those big problems don't play nicely with tight timelines.
Yeah, and I'm getting some pushback on the maintenance stuff. Like there are definitely lower maintenance cars than a 1939 classical whatever, and people have cited some different stories, but there is a fundamental difference. So what is the one fluid that needs to be changed on a Tesla? So windshield wiper fluid. That's it. Like the others, like eventually you'll need to check brake fluid, transmission fluid, oil, get an oil change. Maybe twice a year, maybe 4 times a year, depending on how many miles you put in. But there's all these different things that you need, and there's so many. You don't understand if you don't own a Tesla or you not research it. But there's so many intricate parts that will break down and have issues. Now, if you are used to driving newer vehicles, probably not a big deal. You're under warranty, you're fine, but you still have to take it in and get it repaired. Versus Tesla, you just literally pull up your phone and you're like, hey, I want this done and I'm going to be at my work. So come and do it. And then they will come and do it. And you're done. You're good. You wasted, how long did this take to set up? I don't know, like a minute, 2 minutes. You don't have to sit there. You don't have to arrange somebody to drop you off or a taxi to go back to work or anything like that. It is fundamentally different in the way that they're attacking this. So yeah, you guys are wrong.
We can bring Nate in here to chat more Tesla, but is there other stuff that we wanted to chat about in this pod?
Maybe a little Robinhood.
Is that Robinhood or Palantir? Robinhood.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say? I was going to say something else. Oh yeah, can you throw this up? I threw it in the private chat because I wanted to respond to this. And Nate, if you want to come on, if you're comfortable with that, let me know and I can drop you a link. But I wanted to put up this comment. It was one of Shane's comments. I just gotta find it. Basically, Shane commented, okay, here. I could see an earnings drop after Tesla earnings. They would need big news or numbers to make up for the discouragement felt from the 10/10 event. So here's my thoughts. I agree that 10/10 was somewhat of a letdown. It felt like very quickly put together. Like even that Robovan, there was no numbers, there was no details about anything. It was just concepts, which is great. But I think I said this, when I was covering the event live with Tanner, or maybe in a previous bootleg. But I was saying that, look, you got to really hone in on the audience of these events. And if the audience is the investor class, you got to really give them some specs that they can go off of. Yes, we know that this thing's going to be 2027, but then what's that ramp going to look like? What's the selling price going to look like? What's the production expectations going to look like? How are we going to get this done? And they didn't do any of that. They just said, hey, here's a sexy car. Expect it when we build it. Which is, I think, why it was a letdown. I didn't, if they had introduced, 2 new vehicles, a Tesla motorcycle and a Tesla eVTOL, I'd be like, great. It still wouldn't have had as big of an impact because people cannot have the numbers that are associated with those concepts. And so they'll forever remain concepts in people's minds. And by people, I mean analysts and retail shareholders alike who are modeling out the stock. or the company prospects. But what I do think, Shane, could be a possible sort of X factor in the earnings call is if they fill in some of those blanks in the earnings call. So here on the screen is the questions and answers for the Tesla Q3 earnings call. And a lot of them are to do with things left unanswered in the 10/10 event. And so it'll, I think, give the company an opportunity to shed some light on stuff that they didn't highlight in that 10/10 event. And now that they can see their reaction from the 10/10 event, I think that, you can see a lot of these questions, right? Like they can answer those in a timely manner. And I think that is the piece that was missing from the 10/10 event and could potentially be the piece to give the stock a boost. Because, like we've mentioned ad nauseum through this pod, like it trades on narrative. And so, anyways, it's something that could be interesting, right? Because people have now seen the concepts. They've had the opportunity to sit with those concepts for 2 weeks in their minds, think through how the robotaxi might work, so on and so forth. And now they can ask in the earnings call. And likewise, the company has had 2 weeks to essentially think through, okay, how are these, what do we want to share with the public around how these things are going to work? And then that itself, if they say, okay, robotaxi, you're going to download an app, it's going to cost this. $25,000 car is the robotaxi car. You can have a steering wheel, you can have pedals, so on and so forth. We're going to produce this many. Here's what we're looking at. These are the factories that are going to produce it, so on and so forth. I think that piece there is going to give a boost to the stock.
It might. I'm not sure if Nate is joining us, but one thing I guess we can mention too is I know there's some comments on PayPal. We might talk about PayPal next week. We probably will. 10/29 is the earnings in the pre-market. That's Tuesday for both SoFi and PayPal. Sadly, real quick, I'm still very bullish PayPal. I did buy some more today. I keep buying. I think it's going to be a very, very strong year. Q3, I wouldn't expect too much. It'll be a triple beat. It'll be an upside surprise from what the analysts are expecting, certainly as well. Fastlane, when it launched and then how they're launching it, you won't really see that add significantly to revenue until next year. Advertising likewise. But with all the different partnerships and things that they're doing, Q4 guidance is going to be very, very compelling and interesting, I think. So, but there's an expense to some of the things they're doing too. So very, very bullish. I think Q3 will be good. I think Q4 may be excellent. UK Robinhood. Yeah, we've not talked Robinhood yet. And we might touch, well, I didn't say that we we're going to touch Celsius, but yeah, do Robinhood now?
Let's do Robinhood. How was the event, first of all? Just impressions, what struck you? What can you possibly say and share with the public that is not sensitive information?
Yeah. I had to actually verbally confirm to an NDA for one part of it. So that part I'm not going to touch. But even in that, I don't think there's anything that was shared. I think they're just one thing I really appreciate about Vlad. Well, a couple of things. Let me back up. At this event, it was a lot bigger than I thought. There were people from like BlackRock. There were people from ARK Invest, like Dr. I can't remember his name, Robert something, I don't know, but you've seen him, you know who I'm talking about. British accent, very, very educated. You had people like from Miami Heat, the mayor of Miami. You had Mark Fisher, who's an amazing trader.
Who'd you meet from Miami Heat?
I didn't meet anybody personally from Miami Heat. So, I mean, like the dance team came up and offered
the dance team.
Yeah. But I'm like, nah, I'm
I need an invite to this event. What the heck? The
dance
team Miami Heat.
So they invited, I think probably 500 Robinhood users from all ranges. It was people. There's some people like myself that are, primarily content creators. I guess I'll use that descriptor for myself. Of course, Tanner was there and two other very well-known people on X. And they posted all about it, so I don't think it's a secret.
Yeah, Evan was there, right?
Yeah. Evan was there, and Wolf Financial. So,
cool.
Meeting those guys was really cool. But there were like 500 others that were just all ranges. There's people in there that have like mega money in Robinhood and on Robinhood, like that are multiple millionaires. There were people there that have been using Robinhood for like all the way back since it was very a beginning of an app. There are people that, are other content creators that were there. There are people that have just started using Robinhood in the last couple of years and have like maybe $1,000 on Robinhood, like very, very little. It seems like that they wanted a full range and full spectrum of people. And the reason is they want feedback, like they crave it. They want to know with this Legend platform, and Vlad did a very good job of addressing this in the summit, which was, all videotaped, where they showed all these different tweets of people criticizing and saying, they have dumb charts and you can't take it seriously because they don't have this feature and that feature. And they put it all out there. And Vlad's like, yeah, I've seen these things. And then feature by feature, and then with the Legend platform, they showed, and they're like, these are coming, these are gone. And they just had them like blow up and disappear, except for one. And one, they're like, well, that one's coming too. And it's done in a humorous way, but the product launch, like, you would think this is their first event of this type. Like they did the Robinhood Gold. It was much smaller, but doing a massive multi-day summit like this on this level is not easy. And you would think this company has been doing this for like 10 years, like the way that they pulled it off. It was incredible. But the best, there's several parts that were amazing. Like one is like getting to actually put my fingers on the Legend platform. I have like a long email that I'll send out at the end of the week of like things that they can improve, things that aren't quite right. But it's really, really good. It's fantastic. In fact, I'll use that word. This is, I'm not an active trader much other than just with options and some swing trades. But it's something that Robinhood certainly was missing. Their charts were just trash, other than like the little green candle, which is great for novice users. So having this for more advanced folks, and hopefully they'll have it launched out by the end of the year, is going to keep people from wanting to leave Robinhood after they get all their matching bonuses and they say, okay, I've been here 2 years. Robinhood's okay, but I'm going to somebody else. Nate said he DM'd you, by the way. But beyond the products, so they have the products. They have two new margin accretive products, or revenue accretive products. They have futures that they're launching and index options. And looking at, so they had the CBOE CEO there, and he, is answering a lot of different questions and stuff. And looking at their previous earnings call, they're a publicly traded company. Yeah, that's a meaningful amount of revenue for CBOE and for Robinhood as well. There was a analyst, Piper and Sandler, that came out today, and they talked some specifics as far as their estimates, because I was trying to get an idea of where this is. I think that they might actually be a little bit cautious, but they were basically saying that this would be a 10% bump in options volume for Robinhood, and that the other product, the futures, would bring about 5% more of the daily moving average. A volume daily. There's an acronym. I can't think of it, but the daily volume that's traded on Robinhood, about 5% of that at least would be futures. So these are products too that the pricing on them, we were given some of the pricing, and I don't know how Yahoo News got the pricing on the other, but I'm going to go with it. It's a lot higher. It's still less than anybody else, but except for possibly one or two brokers. But it's a lot higher margins for Robinhood than their other products. So between matching bonuses they're doing, making the program like this, they're actually generating demand and thirst for the product of the Robinhood Legend platform. Though that was probably enough. I was right there close to just saying, I need to be in this company long term when we were last talking. But the piece that really just shoved me over, and I had a long post about it. We won't go through it, but it's in my Twitter profile. I had 9 points of why I'm going to become a long in Robinhood. Before, I saw it as an incredibly cyclical company. It still is cyclical in some ways, but they've broken away from that somewhat. And I was like, this is a great trade over the balance of about a year and a half. And it has been. So I just went fully into options, which has just printed like ridiculous amounts of money for me. And I've sold and I've taken profits along the way. I still have some. And every single bit of those options that I have, I'm buying more Robinhood stock. And I'll probably buy some stock on top of that. I think going into earnings, I'm hoping that we get a similar where they beat. They will. I can almost guarantee, barring something crazy, that they're going to have another 40% year-over-year revenue growth. It's probably going to be 43, 44%. We don't have September numbers, so it's tough to say. August weren't quite as good as I was hoping. So, but what we've seen the last few quarters is they have this ridiculous beat over expectations for top line, bottom line, everything. They don't do guidance, by the way. And then the market just freaking sells it off. And that may be like those VC funds. That may be some of those funds that got in early for the IPO of Robinhood, just taking profits. It's still weird to me. But yeah, I'm going to look for an opportunity. If that happens, I'm going to sell puts into earnings. But I will, at that point, strike and buy shares. And maybe even hold on to my options and just keep those. I don't know. So, but the piece that shoved me over the edge, I'm sorry, I forgot to say this part, was just having firsthand glimpse at the culture. And everybody had this opportunity that was there. And hopefully the other 500 attendees took advantage of it. But they had maybe like 50, 60, 70 employees that were there from all ranges across the board of Robinhood. And some are like working on UK, some are crypto, some are the customer service. Some are working on options, and they have all these different things, many different offices. Some are work from home as well. Some are brand new employees. Some have been there for like 8 years. And of course, Vlad's been there since the beginning. And all but like maybe 2 are incredibly motivated and excited by the products, to the point where Vlad said this is public knowledge, that the futures that they were coming out with, they had to ban usage of that during meetings because they had a number of folks that were busy and addicted to trading futures during the time of their meetings. And it's like, okay, that's like amazing. These engineers would go home from work and they would still want to be working on what they were building for the Legend platform because they were so excited by that. There in Robinhood, like everybody uses Robinhood. Except for those that are stuck in Canada, because Canada is garbage. Sorry, as far as that, you're stuck with Moo or Wealthsimple, But the culture is there. They have some incredibly bright and motivated employees, and they're paid well, but they're not just there for the paycheck. They see the mission and vision. I mean, some are. And then they are interconnected. So usually as a business grows and scales and launches all these products, especially when you have multiple headquarters and you have people working from home, what happens over time naturally is silos are built. And so it's like, well, this is a silo for equities, and this is for options, and this is, this is our customer service. And they don't communicate well, except for maybe when upper leadership is right there. I didn't get that sense at all. If there are silos, they're very, very small. They're rare. This is a company that is incredibly efficient as well. I ran some numbers with projections from analysts, which I think are very soft, and expected number of employee count. They are expanding that a little bit, but it's still a lot less than it was at the peak. They're going to hit $1 million of revenue per employee by the end of this year. I think higher than that, maybe 1.1 or 1.2 million. And that's going to continue to grow as they scale. They're efficient. They have $5 billion in cash. They have no debt. They've gone from being defensive after the GameStop stuff and in the bear market, which made sense. They had the FTX stuff, the buyback stuff, to offensive, and yet they are decreasing the amount of stock-based compensation. It just, like, across the board, they're excelling. And this is a company that, like, you look at Schwab, like, if you've studied them, they're a publicly traded company. Schwab is in real trouble. And I hope that people at Schwab were paying attention to what happened at that summit. Robinhood is absolutely, I don't know where the stock's going, over the next 6 months. It could be that I buy now and I'm like, oh man, I should have waited till it went back to 20. Fine, whatever. I know where this company is going over the next 10 years. I've seen the way that they launch products. I've got a feel of the culture. And so this is, it's a strong conviction, maybe even stronger than I have in PayPal. And I have a strong conviction in that. Palantir is still way up there. But it feels like free money over the long term for me. And so I am long Robinhood. Very excited.
So I want to respond to that. But first, welcome, Nate. I think it's your first time.
What's up, gents?
Nate, good to see you, man.
Good to see you guys too.
I think it's the first time we've been on a stream together, right?
Yeah, I think I joined Mitch old live stream. What was it called with Finance Junkies? I joined that one time. But yeah, first time here for sure. And I've interacted with you guys for, I don't know, like 2+ years now. So it's kind of, it's funny.
Do you, right. So Nate, maybe you can tell us about your Robinhood trade, and then I want to respond to Roy afterwards.
Oh, I mean, it's pretty long. I've been pretty, not bearish, but kind of just on Robinhood for a while. But I felt like this event was kind of like the last straw for me to be like, all right, they're clearly innovators. And so it's kind of the same sort of thing that I felt with Palantir. Like, I think Palantir bulls will deny the AAP boot camps that like, oh, it didn't, we'd be here regardless. But I think Palantir would probably be sub $20, and they wouldn't really get to where they're going to be for another 5 to 10 years. And I feel like this is kind of the same sort of thing for Robinhood, where it's like that last thing to prove that they're actually innovators. And it shows that, they're going to have to do this every year. So they're going to have to put up a show every year, which just continues innovation and makes their employees work harder. I think it's just the same sort of prospects that I saw on Palantir in like 2022, 2023. So it was kind of like the last straw for me to be like, all right, I'm going long and I'm trying to buy as much as I can as quick as possible. So
yes. Yeah, I saw so many things that we saw early on in Palantir mirrored in this. And I would say it's, again, Palantir like is, up there. Like I would never trade and sell Palantir for Robinhood, but there's a lot of similarity, a lot. And yeah. I'm just like the talent pool that they have, the interconnectedness, the focus on the mission, the innovation, the ability to launch all these products and disrupt that entire industry. And they launch things and other people try to copy them and it just doesn't work. It's like, my goodness, I'm glad I had the options, that I've enjoyed that run. I'm glad I see it now, but like it shouldn't have taken me this long, but blew me away.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
So is it going to have an earnings drop? Because that's what I'm. It's at $27. I just checked while Nate was talking.
I think it probably will. I mean, I'm up like 50% my shares I bought like 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago. So, and that's the same with HIMS too.
I could have been up 50% on my shares if I had listened to Roy.
At 14, I'm like, it's free money. They have $5 billion in cash and no debt. They're ridiculous earnings.
There's honestly a lot similar. Like even their balance sheet is really similar to Palantir's. The gross margins are the same. Obviously, they're growing quicker. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of similarities. Founder led. So, and funny enough, I pretty much have all the same positions you guys have.
Here's the Robinhood. If you want to take a look at it.
Oh, you got access to that?
Yeah.
So what makes this platform better than Webull? Like simply as a platform?
It's so responsive. It's so easy to use. People that are their main customer base, it caters exactly to them because it's traders. And so you can set up also. I don't want to click these because I think I've hidden everything I need to hide. But I don't want to show my whole portfolio or anything. But it's very like you log in and you don't need any training like to try to figure out where things are, but you can set up all sorts of different indicators and functions. And then all of these like Keltner channels, I have no idea. Ichimoku Cloud, that's actually one of Vlad's favorites, by the way. But all of these can be customized to a certain degree, colors, the broadness of even like down to the like how thick that line is for the RSI. You can change candles even to the Heikin-Ashi, which I know some people really like. You can go full degeneracy if you want. I actually have this one's pretty cool. This is what I call my degen crypto. And so, I had the standard candles because you have to do it that way for most degeneracy, but just all crypto. I have 2 screens. So if I wasn't using this screen here, I would have 16 of these set up. And you can just very easily just, say, what, I want to go ahead and buy. And then you just have it pops up right here. Doesn't cover the button, doesn't cover the chart or anything that you need. It's just right there. If you want to do options, I think, that should be okay. Advanced options. If I was going to do this in my individual account, like you can do legs, you can do spread options, and I won't show this, but you can just click If I wanted to do, well, you have strike, you can set customization, I guess I should say. You can set up whether it shows calls, puts, both, number of strikes,
this is awesome.
expiration. Even these sub columns, like you can click and drag and reorder. You can remove them if you want to. And so you customize columns, high, low. You can, like, if you care about row, and maybe we should, because, you know, treasury is a little bit different. You can add row on there if you're curious. You can remove some of the Greeks that you don't care about or others. When you're setting up, you want, well, that's adding a widget. So if you're going to set up a new template, you can do it from scratch like this. And you're like, okay, well, I want a watch list over here for sure. There's my Mag 7. And let's go ahead and add a widget here where we won't do account summary because that'll probably show, but I don't want it to, but we'll do a chart. And no, that's a little bit big. Let me instead compress it over here and it's responsive. Like it really is. I like this over on this side, so I'm going to move it here. Or we can just scrap this whole thing. And this is one little thing that I want them to improve on, like where you can adjust the side of this, but you can always click and see what they're on here. But if I wanted to do a template, that's real quick. You just like, okay, options trading, advanced options, chart spotlight, position analysis, tracker. Here's the degeneracy one, watch list tracker. So I have, I think, 4 of these that I actually will use set up, but it's just, and then you can easily switch between your accounts, which I'm not going to, but like it's seamless. You click on a position, and so you see this like blue and blue. So if I decided to unlink this, then as I'm clicking between these, it's not going to repopulate here. Even like the light thing, it like confirms and shows you where you're at. You can remove things easily from your list. You can trade. I'm going to relink this to blue, the blue group. And so on my other tabs here, I have blue and orange and different groups set up so that when I click on certain parts, like a blue holdings thing, it will automatically adjust, for instance, in my advanced options. So I can just switch over and be like, okay, options mode there. And so like I don't know if so with the options, like if I wanted to create a multi-legged trade, if I wanted to, for instance, do a vertical spread, I can, well, that's a bad example on Sofi.
Is there like a home screen on this thing where it shows you, you know, how much you're up or down or what your year to date is? Or, I mean, you're not showing it, but is there?
That's right here. You can adjust that to show that immediately there in whatever you want. It's also over here on this icon where it has other options. And I'm not going to show that just in case. But yeah, like the spreads are basically like you click, okay, I want to buy this leg and I want to sell this leg. Boom. That's like it right there. And of course we can adjust, the ratio, we might want to do a custom ratio instead of 1-to-1, the quantity, we can't adjust the price. I know there's a way to adjust the price. I've not done a spread yet. Oh yeah, limit price. And so then of course the time force, like normal. And so it's just,
this is awesome.
Really, yeah,
this is sick.
Really, really cool.
Did they say when they're going to give access to everyone else? Isn't it like a slow rollout, I assume?
We asked that a good bit of time, and what we were told is that they are wanting to scale this and push this out much, much, much faster than Robinhood Gold. That this, I think there's maybe 1,500 people that have access plus employees. That they want to get feedback. They're going to be working long hours over the next month or two, like they have been. Like a lot of them have like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-hour days because they want to. Mostly, sometimes they need to. But I'm hoping that most people have it by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I could be wrong in that. Maybe it's a little bit later, but I think that probably is the goal with what they're doing. So
it's free, right? You don't need an extra subscription or anything like that. Any Robinhood account has it for free.
Free. And the nice thing is, like, you don't have to use it. Like, you have your standard Robinhood. There's a button that they add. You click that button, boom, it pops up. It looks beautiful. Like, even the color coding tells you what time of day you're in case you forgot you're in extended hours or the overnight market and you don't know. And you can customize like everything, like the colors and everything. There's a lot of little things that they don't have, and the cool thing was in the summit. This is, I think, why they did this. They had the full reveal on the evening, and then the next day they had particulars on futures and index options and on making a legend, I think they called it. And so they had their chief products guy and a couple of engineers there showing off things, and people were asking questions. and they were very interested. They're like, well, what do you mean by this? Like, what are you specifically looking for? And they weren't like, well, it's fine with that. No, they were like, okay, that's something that is on the roadmap. We have a lot on the roadmap, but that's probably something to expect maybe early next year. Or they'd be like, we don't have that on the roadmap yet. We're going to have to discuss that and try to figure out the best way to implement that. But thank you for that. Like, they crave that feedback. And some of these things, like, they showed off a lot. I showed off a lot, but there's just a lot of little nice features that are just, it makes it so ridiculously easy. It's much easier. I'll be using this, all the time. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and I guarantee they'll add features for gold members specifically too in the future.
Oh, so one of those little things that I found, and I didn't know this until I was posting on X last night. I was posting some different charts, especially the crypto degen chart, and people were like, "Well, CleanSpark doesn't trade in the overnight markets." And I double checked with my Robinhood app and on the desktop, and they're right. And so it usually doesn't even show the price. Well, there are, like, I think Interactive Brokers uses Boats, the same overnight processor as Robinhood. Somebody is trading CleanSpark overnight. So I could see what other people couldn't. I could actually see, not that it matters too much, the up and down movement. I couldn't trade on that. But it was like, man, it feels like a superpower. By the way, like, for active traders, I know Jesse, if he's listening or watching, like, they have Fibonacci levels, all that kind of stuff. Like, if you are into that. So I don't use that, but
yeah, neither do I.
It'd be interesting also to just get a deeper look at how they're thinking about the revenue models around this thing. Like, if they're entirely making an active push to not charge people, like not go to the B2C route and just go, payment for order flow and getting money behind the scenes, that's one thing. But if they're actively looking to double down on that subscription payment, then I think that there's a lot of flexibility that they can play around with.
Oh yeah,
to juice up, like, how exclusive or what alpha people get because they're subscribers. And that's also cool for the market as well, because we're going to be in another bear market at some point or another in the future, right? There's going to be periods where, crypto's in another winter, there's not a lot of trading. And essentially you want them to actively push that subscription model to go B2C, because it creates a more sustainable, predictable revenue flow versus just the way they're making money now.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they have 6 segments, maybe 7 segments of their business, including the gold subscriptions, that now have an annual run rate of over $100 million. Like,
what's their total revenue?
Pardon?
What's their total revenue? What's their, like, year to date, or what do they expect to do this year?
Sometimes they have these things ready to go and sometimes not.
Is there like a view that shows me all the financials of these companies easily, or is it just trading based?
I think it's just trading. I would love to see that, and I'm going to add that.
I have a feeling they'll add that.
That's something that Webull has. That's kind of cool, because I can just go on the platform and see it.
Yeah, I do go to Webull for that. So, company analysis view.
Vlad, if you're listening, hire me.
Honestly, like,
Robinhood's one of those companies I'd want to work at too. There's only a few.
It's a cool company, yeah.
Another one's Palantir, but
yeah, for sure.
Well, I just had my interview there yesterday, so.
Yeah, when you in Tokyo.
That's why you're there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Tokyo, Japan, because you're fluent in Japanese, and
I don't need to be fluent in Japanese.
Yeah.
You could see, I went to and I also stumbled upon, like, Google's offices too, and you could just see, like, the, like, clear foreigners who are just in and out of those offices. I'm like, there's no chance all of these people speak fluent Japanese. There's no chance.
Yeah. I wish Sofi did something like that for Robinhood event. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we talked about that.
Don't get me started, man.
We talked about that last night on Sofi Wkly, and long and short is they should, but they're not going to. So prove us wrong.
It's just like, it's so frustrating, right? Because you just see, like,
Zero
There was,
product innovation for 3 years, and you're like, what's going on? I work in tech too, so I understand the roadmaps and cycles of things, and it should never take this long, ever.
exactly, right? And so we were arguing, a year ago on SoFi rolling out level 1 options and being at parity with Robinhood, and even simple front end changes to make it easier to use from a UX perspective. And now Robinhood has just gone and leapfrogged them again with all of these innovations and rolled out an entirely new platform. They rolled out, several new apps from scratch, like when they released their gold card, it came with a couple of apps included. And meanwhile, it's like SoFi's in the same exact spot from their invest platform. And I think that's
Yeah.
the thing that frustrates me is I wouldn't say that there's no innovation, because there is. It's just not it's not stuff that people can see. It's mostly on Galileo's side, or they're rolling out new products on, like, their banking aspects, or doing new things with loans, or working with institutions for their loan book. But at the same time, it's just their invest platform is so behind, like so behind.
Yeah, and it's not even like they have to innovate. Like a lot of what we want them to have is already exists, which makes it even easier to push those changes. Like to innovate, it takes a lot longer, a lot more time. But I'm sure there's plenty of GitHub repos that you could find, and it wouldn't be that hard, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on there internally, or what the deal is, if it's deliberate or if it's just a circumstance of the people that are working there. That's the other problem. It's like we get zero looks under the hood, for no pun intended, but zero inside looks into SoFi, so we can't even tell. And meanwhile, this mofo is getting pictures like this.
Yeah, he spent. I probably got at least an hour and a half with him over the 4 days, 3 days, whatever, and maybe a little bit longer. But just you can tell after meeting, maybe like 2 minutes you can't tell, but enough conversation, like you can tell when someone is hungry and motivated and has a vision and wants to execute it. Like Vlad, you're looking at the stock he holds and what he's done. Like he's fine as far as money, but he has a vision and a passion for Robinhood, and he's not tired. He's not looking to get bought out. Maybe even a little bit of chip on his shoulder just from like some of those early VC days and what people have thought about Robinhood here. But man, they're going for it. And I love to see them not like they have $5 billion in cash that they can play with. They do mergers and acquisitions very, very well. They've expanded their marketing by 100 million, over the next year. But like their ROI on that has to be just really, really sick. So they're not hiding anymore. So I'm like, dude, I gotta get in this company and stay in it. Options are not enough. So yeah, this actually flipped me on. SoFi has incredible tailwinds coming over this next year. It's an incredible trade, and I have a lot of options in SoFi. I have a lot of stock as well. But I used to think, okay, SoFi is way better long term. Robinhood is better short term. Now I think it's flipped.
I used to think that too.
SoFi is probably way stronger short term, and Robinhood way, way stronger long term. And I still think I'll be long term in SoFi, but yeah, I'll take profits along the way. I don't want SoFi to be my second largest position. I would rather have a Robinhood or a Tesla or a PayPal. And I know you guys have different opinions on PayPal, but
I'm totally with you with that too. I think I used to be a massive SoFi. I mean, I'm still a SoFi bull, but I think in the past 3 years that there hasn't really been much that happened besides execution. I mean, they've executed great, but on the innovation side, on the tech side, it's been a massive disappointment for me.
yes.
And seeing a lot of other companies pass them up, it's easier to invest in those companies. Honestly, you can see the future because they've proven it. Whereas SoFi's talked about it, but there's not been a lot of development. I mean, maybe there has been behind the scenes that we don't know about, but that's also the problem. We have no, clarity to that. So it's what it is.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think, like, I look at a lot of the companies that I've been buying, over this past year, and I mean, HIMS is another one that we can jump into
Oh yeah,
afterwards. These are companies that are innovating to some degree, and they're like, you can see a clear roadmap to how they're going to get to where they're saying they want to go. And with SoFi, like every earnings, the numbers speak for themselves, and the business is executing really well. But I think that, you know, if innovation was the only thing, the only factor for me to invest in a company, probably SoFi would not be my first pick. But I think where SoFi is in the market right now, in terms of evaluation, relative to the numbers that they're putting out and relative to that innovation, makes it a compelling, value prop for me to invest in.
for sure.
But it's not that like I see value in investing in SoFi that the market doesn't see, and that's why I'm investing in SoFi, still adding, in SoFi actively, talking about SoFi, whatnot, because I want to shed light on that value. But is SoFi the most innovative company in my portfolio? I wouldn't. I don't think I can defend that.
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
else on Robinhood, Roy, or do we want to jump on HIMS or anything else?
Yeah, the international vision, like it's there. So some people are asking is like, well, what about Robinhood UK? It's doing bleep over here, and they launched margin literally today. They need SIPs, they need ISAs, they need options, and then they're good to go. Like they're working on these things. There's regulation issues that go deeper than I had thought. But their vision isn't just be in the United States, expand to the UK, and then maybe get into the EU at some point beyond just crypto.
No Canada plans, hey?
Even Canada is somewhere on the roadmap. I mean, they have offices in Canada,
Yeah.
but that's like probably way down, because it's Canada.
Cheap labor up there.
And this is not like a winner take all market, but there's many, many hungry markets throughout the globe and many unreached places that Robinhood, I think, will eventually get to. The UK is actually, I believe, the third attempt to expand internationally. They had one that I don't even remember back in a while ago in Australia. They launched in the UK earlier. They're trying to do it the right way now. So they want to make sure they get this right. It's kind of like with the credit cards, they're going slow. Then maybe they took a page out of SoFi's book, on that, which is a good thing. If it's new and it can, hurt your reputation, break things and make it harder in the future, go slow, go deliberately, and make sure you do it right. And then you can scale it from there. So that's what I see them doing. Man.
So I just want to.
I do. Okay.
I just want to respond to this really quick on SoFi because I see people commenting. Shane says, I'd feel better if SoFi just ditched the invest platform. They've made zero progress on it, so it's a waste of resources at this point. I don't agree with that because I think it's a crucial point in that ecosystem, and that ecosystem itself is the moat, which is something I've said consistently for SoFi. But what I am saying is that there are reasons that people pick SoFi Invest over Robinhood, and predominantly, I would imagine that those reasons consist of the ecosystem as a whole. There is a benefit for them to go with Invest because what they get as a SoFi Plus member, if they have multiple products, is more appropriate for their use case. Now, what I will say, and this is the thing that is irritating to me as a SoFi investor, is that if somebody is coming in the door only wanting to use a brokerage, there were very few reasons, let's say 2 years ago or last year, that somebody would use SoFi Invest versus Robinhood. There's even fewer reasons right now if it's standalone offering versus standalone offering. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying there's people that use SoFi Invest for the ecosystem, but if it was just for SoFi Invest itself, every year they're falling further behind. At least that's what the perception is relative to Robinhood.
No, that's 100% right.
And I do. The platform isn't bad. Invest, like I used it. It's just not good. But it is nice for a certain type of investor that's not a trader, but also wants like really easy access between their investing and in their actual cash account. Because you can sell something, and I believe you can move it right away. I'll have to try that actually at some point. I bought Sofi on Sofi Invest, so that's been fun. But it's like $50 worth. It's like now $70 worth. Yay! But it's not bad, and they can go a very different way than Robinhood. I don't think that they want the active trader market or anything like that, but there are features that they need to add, certainly, and they can continue to differentiate themselves and be okay. If they get invest to the point where it's no longer hemorrhaging money, that would be a win. That's fine.
I was the same way. I started banking with SoFi in 2022. And when I first started, my mindset was, I like SoFi and I like Robinhood. Robinhood's a little bit better, a couple features. But then over the past few years, there is less than a 1% chance that I join SoFi Invest unless it somehow just does a 180 for me, at least.
Yeah. Just want to bring up this comment because I do think that it is something active, like a deliberate effort to not actively focus on invest and focus, like, divert resources to something else. Shane is saying we have to remember that their target audience, it's not active and informed investors. It's just passive ETF, set and forget investors, high earners playing it safe. So they're just different products. I mean, they're apples and oranges to a large degree. But I don't think anybody can deny what Robinhood is doing. And this is coming from somebody who was skeptical on Robinhood, years ago, and somebody who was saying, well, they don't have that big of a lead. So if they choose to divert efforts, they can really copy them. And I think that is being more and more untrue every passing year.
So you're going to buy some Robinhood then, Tevis?
Tesla.
Yeah. I'm thinking about going back to that topic.
I think we'll see how it does on earnings. I think if it falls disproportionately to earnings, I will buy some, but I don't know, man. I just psychologically don't feel great buying at $27, especially because I saw it at $15 like a month ago.
Yeah. Kind of like buying hymns here.
Same thing. I'm not buying hymns at $23 either. Where I know I should be because I think hymns is going to be much higher than $23. I'm really happy I bought those leaps, and they were like $30 leaps too. So those are really printing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I just have shares, so
I just have shares too. I wish I bought leaps.
Yeah, I wasn't comfortable with leaps. If it kept falling, if it went back down to like $13, I would have bought some leaps. But I basically only do that on very undervalued positions, or I will sell them deep in the money, just as a form of leverage. So, but yeah, shares are easy to hold in HIMS, like easy. All the volatility and stuff, and it's crazy volatile.
My every day it's like something about GLP-1. It's either up or down 10%. I'm like, okay, guys, can you make up your mind?
Yeah, it's like you look at a day and you're like, oh, like I think today maybe it's up like 4.78%, or like, and it's like, oh, it's kind of a calm day. It's like, what in the world?
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's nuts.
I just pulled up the chart. It's up 40% in the past month and 94% in the past 6 months.
I mean, I bought it probably 8 weeks, not even 8 weeks ago, and I'm already at 52%. Just holding shares. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, it makes no sense. I don't even know why. There was no earnings. I guess just market trend really for small caps.
And it was undervalued. It might still be, but like it was ridiculously undervalued when it fell to 13. Like I even knew that, and I wasn't convinced by the thesis. And of course I was convinced, and it was 17. I'm like,
yeah.
Ultimately, like with a stock, if you, this happens so many times when I'm researching stocks, because I usually do it pretty slowly and deliberately and over time, and like to watch a couple of different earnings. But I was familiar with him somewhat, and Tevis was, part of that help there, data-driven investing as well. But when I'm convinced, but I'm like, oh, but it was recently like 20% lower, maybe I should wait. I almost always regret waiting. Now, nibbling, not necessarily going all in, but like dollar cost averaging at that point, like that is what has worked very, very well for me. So yeah.
That's how I felt about it. I remember telling you, Roy, that I was like, I might wait. It's been up a bunch. But then this Legend event was just like, you know what? Like, I don't care about price. I just need to accumulate. Yeah. I mean, this is exactly what happened in Palantir. It was like $18. It was up like 2.5x from $6. And I was like, I don't know. I might wait. And then it just keeps going. Now it's $42, which, expensive, but still, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can bring up my screen. I wanted to just throw up. I can't do it. I wanted to just throw up the Webull desktop, or maybe Roy, you can show it on Legends. How about that?
What are you looking at?
Just throw up hymns on a 2024 view, and I just want to talk through it because this is
Man, I wish I got it like $2 or $3. My God.
well, yeah. I mean, even not even that. Like, even if you had gotten like $8, but
Yeah.
so throw this up, Roy. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is the yearly view, right?
Hymns and 1 year.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, all right. Started off 2024 at $8, and that was in January of 2024. Okay, this year started off $8, and then by about end of March, it hit $16, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it dropped back down to $11 in May. No, other one. In May. Yeah. And then it popped to that gap was earning. So it popped to $25. That's the high. And then it dropped back down to 13, and now it's back up to 23. Like, this thing has done
All right, so it's going to
several
30 and going to go down to 16. So just wait till 16, Tevis, and then there's your
Well,
buy.
that's what I'm saying, right? It's done like a 2.5x drop 50%, 2x drop 50%, 2x. Like, it's insane.
It is nuts.
Just on the volatility alone, right?
Yeah. The weekly, like even the weekly, it
Yeah, those
like,
green candles are just insane.
it looks like the date, you know, just it's so crazy. Yeah. So
We'll
and
see
it
how
just,
earnings is. Earnings is going to be in a couple of weeks, so that's going to be an interesting time.
yeah, you can see the volume is just like there's a lot more activity.
It seems like ever since GLP-1, their announcement for that, it seems like the volume just been way more insane on the up and down. Which to me sounds like hedge funds wanting to catch some GLP-1 wave. But
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the insiders chart, it's just been going up and up and up. Here, let me pull it up. It's 23% insider ownership, which is not a lot at all. But if you look at that trend, it looks crazy.
Yeah, you know, I wish I understood the thesis more earlier, but it's one of those things where I'm still up a lot because it's a good company. It's really good.
Yeah, but you and I were in Palantir then, so I think I think we won either way.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay with my Palantir and Robinhood gains, and now SoFi. Like it's the craziest thing. Actually, there was a post like, you know, showing your biggest winners and losers, like that you're holding in your portfolio. I didn't have a single position on anything that I was read in, like nothing, not even like a small option play in my like Roth or something. You know, so it's just like, you know, we're in a bull market.
So this is what I want.
SoFi's finally like a 50% gainer for me, which is nice.
Can you guys see this
3 years though?
Yep.
So yeah, I'm on one screen, so it's going to be tough. But this is the institutional ownership that's just been going up and up and up and up for this company. And like, it's not a lot of institutional ownership right now, but it's a crazy trend. I mean, we talk about SoFi's institutional ownership going up, but this is going up at a much faster clip. So it's encouraging stuff for sure.
Man, look at that 2021,
Sorry,
like 4% hedge fund ownership. So that entire thing, it's crazy. Look at how much retail moves these stocks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small market cap company, right? Like, it's right now, after this entire move upwards at $23 a share, it's $5 billion market cap.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this thing was like a 1 billion or under $1 billion market cap, like at the beginning of this year, man, or last year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's exciting for sure. We're gonna have probably a HIMS episode tomorrow, and then Roy and I are gonna cover earnings on HIMS in a couple weeks.
Awesome.
And that'll be an early wake up for me because I think that's like a 6 a.m. wake up.
Right.
But that's fine because SoFi's earnings is like 9 p.m. for me. So
Maybe either going out after or going right to bed.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Probably going right to bed in both cases.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. I'm seeing a couple of questions too. I made a couple of different, shorter term trades. I don't usually mention, comment, post about my swings, but I saw TJ was doing the in phase one. So I ended up saying, I ended up selling some cash secured puts, not many, on in phase for $80 strike going into earnings, which is tomorrow. Not recommending that or not. I like the premium there, but I don't mind owning in phase long term. Just I prefer Tesla, even despite my misgivings on the full self driving as it currently stands. But it's the same sort of thing. Energy demand's way up, interest rates are falling down. It's not a difficult play. And analysts have been so bearish on Enphase as far as their future earnings, and it's very volatile. Like one day they'll be like raising it, one day they'll be lowering it. I think that they're off over the next year by a fair bit. Short term, they might be right. So I see Celsius kind of the same way, and so I ended up doing something a little bit differently with Celsius. I ended up initiating a swing trade, not just a cash secured put, but some options targeting up to January. So it's not just an earnings play. Earnings can do whatever. Hopefully it doesn't crash, but it might. But there's so much negativity built in Celsius. I don't want to own that one long term. And so the way I'm thinking of it is, if that trade works out, great. I've made a lot of money. If it doesn't, I'm not going to bag hold it. I'm not going to average down on options. I'm just going to take the L and move on. And that's fine.
I have another friend that actually just sold, I think, $32 puts today as well. So
on Celsius?
On Celsius, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think selling puts is bad, especially if you want to own it long term. I just don't. So I'd rather just do calls and lose money.
Yeah.
Be like Tevis.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that sounds like a Tevis move.
Yeah.
Hey man, I made money on Celsius. I think that's like my biggest percent gainer this year is Celsius options, and then HIM's options I think is slowly climbing up there. So no complaints on Celsius to me.
Did
I
you
think
want
I'm
to
up on my shares too. The ones I bought low 30s. What did you want to talk about?
Nate initially was giving us some pushback, and I think wanting to come up and talk Tesla. Did you still want to do that, Nate?
Yeah, sure. I'll talk Tesla.
Yeah, maybe we can end on that one.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, look, I'll preface with I love Tesla. I love Elon. I actually was thinking about buying a Tesla. I was last March. I was thinking of looking at the car, and I was comparing Model 3 with a Civic. I'm a very objective, pragmatic guy, and I was doing a lot of spreadsheet numbers, and it just felt like. I mean, also again, I'm comparing a Tesla, which is like a sort of a luxury vehicle, to a entry-level Japanese car. So I get that there's a big discrepancy there when it comes to speed, luxury, all the other amenities with that car. But I don't know. I just feel like bulls get too caught up in the bull case about, luxury or electric vehicles have no maintenance, they're cheaper, all these other things. And when I really was doing the math for Civics or Camrys or Corollas or Accords, they actually end up being cheaper until about year 8. And then the electric vehicle is cheaper. I think what Tesla bulls need to start prefacing is that if you can charge at home, then I think it becomes cheaper.
Way cheaper.
Yeah. But most people don't have a home. Because when I was doing research, when people charge at a supercharger station, it was I think I heard everyone I asked was between $20 and $30. And to fill up my Civic for my area.
That's wrong.
Is that too expensive or too cheap?
Way too expensive. Yeah, it's like $10 or $12. I expect with a slightly larger battery, it might be like $16.
At a supercharging station?
Mm-hmm. It depends on the time too, but the most expensive I've ever paid was I think 13. When it was
Does it vary from state to state? Because they're solar powered, right? In Texas gets a lot of sun.
We drove all the way from Virginia down here to Texas. It's all the same. There are different rates, per kilowatt hour, but they were all within the range. And usually it's per time of day. Like if it's a busier time, they'll charge a little higher rate. Not as busy time, it'll be a little bit lower. Still way more expensive than at home. And it's Tesla ownership, it's probably somewhat cheaper if you do the supercharger and everything. But yeah, you're right. Like if you can do, even without solar panels, which we don't have, you charge at home, like it's so much cheaper, like ridiculously so. And as far as maintenance, as far as Tesla being a time company, a company that gives you back time, my wife actually hates going to the gas station, hates it with a passion. I don't mind. Like, it's fine. It's whatever. And so like with our old gas car, she would be like, hey, can you go take it to the gas station and fill it up? It's a pain in the rear end. And so she said, when I got the Tesla, it took her like 2 minutes to fall in love with it. Maybe a little bit longer, but she loves that fact that she never has to go to that gas station ever again. And it saves a lot of time. You just drive into the garage, plug it in, and you're done.
Yeah. I think I asked Joel, who lives in Columbus with me, and he said it was like 20 to 25 bucks to fill up his Model Y at a supercharging station. Not sure if that, but this, I don't know if that changed or if it's different or he was wrong or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I've not been up there, so maybe it's just extremely high up there and all those states are lower. I don't know.
Yeah.
I also think, Nate, that like it might not be the most comparable thing because it sounds like you're very price conscious, and the main reason you're buying a car is what offers you the most savings or what can get you further on your dime. And you're comparing like the cheapest cars in the market with a Tesla, which is like a $50,000 car, right? And so like, well, how does that same price go if you compare a Tesla Model 3 with like a Chrysler 300 and a Audi and like cars that are comparable in price? Like my dad just bought a Mercedes, and it was like a similar price. It was $40,000, and I guarantee you the Tesla will come out to be cheaper than that car. It might not be cheaper than a Civic, but at the same time, Tesla doesn't have a Civic comparable car. Like all of these cars, I think the cheapest one is like $40,000.
Yeah, that's true for sure. I think when I initially was looking, it was like everyone's talking about how the Model 3 is super cheap and cheaper than people think. But and this is also before you could, I think it's the price of the what was it? Like the EV tax, what used to be thrown on top of the loan. So you still have to pay $7,500 on top of the interest you get for your loan. So unless you pay it off quicker, you're still to pay more money. So like that $7,500 credit isn't as much of a credit as it is because it's still on top of the loan, which you're getting interest on. But now, because of the new year, they stopped doing that, which is another big benefit. But back then they weren't. So that was another thing where I'm like, that's another $8,000 I don't feel like paying for on a loan. But yeah, there are definitely a bunch of things, and I think comparing it to a Civic isn't necessarily fair. But I was just comparing, like I heard Model 3s were the cheapest. I love Tesla. I want to get one. I just cared about being as budget conscious as possible, so I can invest as much as possible.
I mean, you also mentioned that like Tesla bulls are really excited for things that are so far outdated, and I don't disagree with you, but one of those things is that $25,000 car, like that car that is going to be comparable to the Civic,
which I don't think is coming, by the way. Not in like it won't come at all, but I think that price tag is not coming. Because when the Cybertruck was released, it was like what, 50K he said, and now they're like 90K base. So they've nearly doubled in a year.
I think Cybertruck might be 70 something.
And I think
when the Foundation series, they've released the full.
But I know when he initially announced it 4 years ago, he said like 50K, right? Or something like that. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And now it's like 40% more.
Yeah, I could see like getting closer to the 30,000. But it's hard to say.
I think they always price in the incentives as well with those prices, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, I don't disagree. It could end up being like 32,000 or whatever it may be, but it's a car that's going to come in 5 years, let's say, right? It's going to be mass produced and sold in 5 years. That inflation on every car out there is going to make it still one of the cheapest options available.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yep. Here's a standard non-foundation Cybertruck. This is not with, and I don't like that they include this, but I'm glad that you can uncheck it. The gas savings, like that's a real thing. $5,500. depending on how much you drive, if you can charge at home. But this credit right here, like for me, I qualify. So
Yeah,
my wife and I, she doesn't work, so it works out for us. But yeah, 72,000, it's not bad. But yeah, the Cyber Beast and then the Foundation, I think that it's the same thing. I might be mistaken. There might be some slight differences. It's a bit more expensive. So, but yeah, like if it's 27, 28, like it's fine. But
My point, where I was going with that was that like you witnessed and experienced firsthand the same thing that makes so many people excited about that $25,000 car, even if it ends up being
Yeah.
32,000 or whatever it may be. Like that is the economy option for the Tesla suite of products, right? They
sure.
have like it's cheap or it's the cheapest Tesla option, but Tesla is still like a mid-range to luxury car. It's not like an economy type of car,
For
right?
sure. Yeah, and I test drove a Model 3 before I was looking to buy one, and that driving experience was the best. I loved it.
it's so
Regenerative braking took a little bit to get used to at first. I was like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, this brakes really hard." But yeah, it's a great. I love driving it. But for me, it's like I don't know. I work from home, so I have the luxury that I don't drive often. So it's like I'm not going to get a car that's just going to sit there most of the time anyway.
Yeah, and I ended up going the used route just because this year we qualified for the 4,500, and that's instant, which is really nice. So all taxes, fees, registration, everything was under 21,000 for a 2022 Model 3 with 50 something thousand miles on it. So in really
Wow.
good shape, and
That sounds really good.
it's like I looked at other. I already wanted a Tesla, but I'm like, well, I need to look to see what other gas cars are in that range, and they're trash. And it helps a lot, but
how's the insurance on it too? Because when I was researching, I think because I only pay like $125 a month, and when I was looking, it was going to be like $250 to $300 for a Model 3. So that's the other thing I was concerned about is so you save money on gas or electric, but you're paying that in insurance.
Yeah, so
in my opinion.
I'm on Progressive. I've heard that from other people. Progressive, it treated it just like the equivalent gas vehicle for us. But
Interesting.
it's still expensive because like auto insurance has gone up a lot. Tesla insurance is really interesting. It is available in Texas. We are absolutely going to switch to it here. Probably should just do it after this podcast. It's neat because I have one of my sons will be with us probably for another couple of years. The other, he's doing community college right now and working and commuting. But to add them, normally it's quite expensive. And you know this, Nick, because you're a young man. For young men to, especially when they're just starting out, to insure their vehicles. And Tesla charges $0 for them. Like it's for the vehicle, basically. You're just getting it on that. And it was very reasonable. It's actually a lot cheaper than what was on Progressive. And they don't care what their limited driving, like it could be a 16-year-old driver and you just add them and it costs $0 extra because they only care about that safety score, which they seem like they're relatively generous with, as far as I can tell. They give you a safety score, I think, of 80 to start out. You can get that all the way up either to 99 or 100. Number of people that I have that use that I know that use Tesla insurance, they say it's real easy to get it up there. Maybe I'm a worse driver than them. I don't know, but you can always cancel and go back. But no, I heard that, and I don't find any credence to it. Maybe that was a case like 3 years ago, and it probably is with certain companies. And the other thing that I heard that I also found is completely wrong is they said, oh, the tires are super expensive. I don't have the 18-inch. I have the 19-inch, which are more expensive. But even those are the same cost as any other car that I've had as far as tires. Because I thought I had to have a tire replaced just because we ran over a screw and nobody would fix it. I tried patching it myself. Didn't work. Found this awesome tire company that I was like, hey, I probably need to buy a new tire, this and that and the other. They patched it for me free of charge. Awesome. So, but no, that we looked at all the prices and it was a very reasonable valuation, nothing special. So there's a lot of myths out there.
I just remembered that the $25 I had when I did the math was because I was doing per mile you get based on what you're paying and how much you fill up. So that's because the Civic you get 415 miles with the tank of gas, and the electric vehicle is like what 280 or something. So that's where my math came from for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
But then on the insurance side, my buddy Joel, I think he's all over Twitter. He told me a lot about Tesla insurance and how it's like extremely cheap. But on the tire side, how often do you have to change them? Because isn't it because it's a heavier car that you do have to change them more often? So then therefore it actually is more expensive.
I don't know from personal experience, but yeah, I've heard, you probably have to, if you're used to replacing tires every 4 years, it might be every 3 years, with the same amount of driving. So it's a little more often. That's the one piece of maintenance that is more expensive though. And so it's worth considering, but like, it's not like the tires are like, oh, this is a Tesla only tire. And I think maybe with like 20-inch in like special, I don't know, that would be the case. Cybertrucks, I have no idea, but I just know in my Model 3, it's comparable to any other car, just maybe, 25 or 30% more often. I need to change them out. So,
yeah. So my game decision or game plan was I'll just wait 10 years and get like a nice Model S. And that'll be the route I go for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys see the refreshed Model Y?
Oh, dude, if that thing comes out, that is a sexy looking car.
I want that. That's actually when my wife and I were talking about. So we had a vehicle that was totaled. It was our old gas car, and we thought about buying a Y because they had really good incentives on it. But the vented seats, like that alone, plus all the other things that they have, in assuming that the Model 3 refresh, if they at least have those features, I would actually regret owning the current Model Y. So that might be some drag actually on this quarter sales and next quarter. Like we've seen the delivery numbers already. So. That's not too important, but for quarter four, that could be the case. Although they may have some extra incentives, it'll just compress margins a little bit. But the other maintenance thing that people don't think about is on a standard vehicle, you have to change your brakes every so often. The Tesla, you're not even using your brakes; like you hardly ever touch it. So it's like there's no maintenance on it. It's just.
And I think on my side, for me, that I guess I didn't really touch on was my brother's also a certified tech, so he just does all my repairs for free, and I just pay for parts. So for me, it's like my maintenance is actually really low for a traditional gas vehicle.
Yeah.
So I guess that also helps, and I didn't mention that.
That's like saying you own your own gas refinery, so it's cheaper for you to drive a gas. Like yes, but like that's not most people.
Yeah.
Roy, you said you bought yours and it was a 2022, right?
2022 Model 3.
How was the battery charge? Was it worn out? Like, because you know how the longer it goes, you won't get full charge.
Yeah.
What does it go up to?
There's a little degradation. I think it's originally spec'd at 272 miles of range, maybe 274. It gets about 260 or so, which is fine. And what I understand as far as degradation, because I researched this is in 2022, and this is why I wanted a 22 specifically. They switched from the nickel cadmium, I believe that's right, version to, which is actually better in colder weather as far as like maintaining its charge, to the lithium phosphate batteries. And the powerful thing on the lithium phosphate is with the other Teslas, you don't want to charge it above 80% was a recommendation, and or have it go below 20. And so you can imagine, well, 272 miles, but you're not supposed to charge it up, this 20% and under this 20%. So like range anxiety, I would imagine with that would be very real. And you don't necessarily want to plug it in and charge it all the time. Lithium phosphate, it wants to be charged. You just plug it in, you charge it up to 100%, doesn't matter. You let it go down to 1%, it doesn't matter. Don't let it go to zero, because it's not like a gas car where you have extra miles and extra fumes in the gas still piling. But it is low maintenance, easy, simple. We almost, when we were considering buying that second Tesla, we switched away from the Y, and we're like, well, maybe we'll get another Model 3 that was really nice. It was in the specs and color that we like, but as a 2021 with lower miles. Found out it was a nickel cadmium battery, and we were like, yeah, no thanks. He thought it was lithium phosphate, and he was wrong. So, but no, that was a very, very big deal switch. I know the Cyber Beast, the Cybertruck, it's all the nickel cadmium, just because it needs to with that specification. But yeah, the new Ys, the 3s, they're all lithium phosphate.
Well, and this might be misinformed because I don't own one, but I'm just going off of what I've heard Elon say in the past, where he's basically said the car can go as long as like 1 million miles. I mean, there's been a while since he's said this, but normal cars, you go to 200,000, kilometers or miles, even more so. But 200,000 kilometers, 160,000 miles, whatever. The car is pretty much worn out at that point. Like it's too old, right? Whereas with a Tesla, if you can switch out that entire, battery, the skateboard, and if that's cheap to do, granted, if Nate's talking about 10 years, but even 5 years, like if that gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper for them to do, the degradation won't be a big piece. And so then what do you have to replace? Like the tires? Like what? There's no real cost. If it's 10 grand for me to replace this and I have to do it once every, however many years, 7 years, let's say, then that's amazing, right? I don't have to buy a new car. I can still stay with the same car and it works as new.
Yeah, and when I was trying to get my Model 3, I actually was like on the border of getting it, even though it was going to be more monthly. But the only thing that deterred me was I tried to get my apartment complex to install electric chargers for a lot of people here, because there's a few people that have Tesla. So I was like, hey, it's not just me that has it. And that was going to be like, if they accepted it, I was going to get one, because then charging for free is like, it's a no-brainer to me at that point. But unfortunately, they denied it. And actually, Tesla has like, they were really responsive. I contacted them, and they have like this form or sheet you can send to your rental place, and like they fill it out and sign stuff. So it was really interesting when I started doing that too. But yeah, and also I'll preface that my entire family is like so not anti-EV, but so uninformed that they become anti-EV. So I'm always defending Tesla. So it's fun to be on the other side of this, where I'm trying to find, the bad things about a Tesla, which is hard, to be honest.
So somebody asked like charging times, like in home, if you install a charger, which I highly recommend instead of just using the plug, for my car, which has one battery, it takes, about 8 hours if it's very, very low, to all the way up to 100%. That last percent is going to be very slow, whether you're at home or whether you are doing the supercharger. Supercharger, my wife and I are going to take a trip tomorrow. We'll use a supercharger. If we're at like, 30%, we plug it in, it gets up to like 90% in, 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. So we go inside, we get a drink, we use the bathroom, and then we're done. But the Model Y, which has two batteries, it charges quite a bit faster. So mine, it would actually charge, is it 33% faster? I think that's right, than my current one. Though it has more to fill up in the battery. So, but yeah, I really enjoy the Teslas. Like the experience is really unreal. And for those that have a Tesla in the area, or if you're thinking about getting a car, I highly suggest scheduling a demo drive. It's free.
Oh yeah.
They don't pressure you at all with sales. I heard that, but I was like, nah, come on. Like maybe it's light pressure. Like not at all. Like the most that they'll do is, if you signed up for this, they'll send you like when there's a special promo on something, or maybe a new model comes out or some breaking news. And that's not even once a month. But they basically, they walk you through it remotely. It's all through your app. You do a phone call, you get in your car, they unlock it for you. They ask what temperature you like. They make sure that's right for you. Another thing I love about Tesla is I can schedule all that in advance. And then you drive it for, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. You can try multiple models. Cybertruck, I don't know if they're doing demos for everybody at this point. They probably are, but it's a great drive. And then if you're, more frugally minded, maybe look at getting a used one. Because of Hertz dumping their inventory in the market. Actually, my oldest son wants to get a Tesla, and we're going to probably help him get that purchase here before the end of the year to take advantage of the tax credit. But it's bang for the buck, like just phenomenal price, especially on the used.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I might have to look at some used Model 3s, right? You said?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In some, at least here in Texas, for some reason, it seems like the further northeast or northwest that we get, the cheaper it gets. In Texas, I guess people are snapping them up left and right. I don't know. But for us, it was worth me flying to Virginia, and I had a college son up there, so I picked him up too. But paying for that plane ticket, getting a hotel, driving down, getting another hotel, all the food, all the drinks, and we still saved several $1,000s.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, like check into it. There's also, if you're doing used, there are some dealers that don't know how to handle the tax credit at all. And then there's some that are already, and it's a very simple process. All of them should do this, but some just don't do many Teslas, so they don't know. Yeah, make sure, see if they can do the credit immediately. Like they're able to, as long as they've signed up for that. through the federal website. But yeah, a lot of them that I talk to don't have that. So
I love how this started out as like talking about stocks, and it ended up a guide to buying your first Tesla.
dude, like the Tesla is so good. It's so good. Even but it's important, and I appreciate you, Nate, doing this. And I shared that full self-driving experience, which is really bad, because as bullish as I am on the company, and as much as I love the car, there are negatives, and it's real easy to get into an echo chamber and just say, I'm only going to listen to all this hype stuff. And that's when you get into trouble as far as your investments, because you've not heard any negative case, or you've not considered it. And frankly, in real life too, that's a great real life lesson, is you need to have some people that are not throwing outlandish things like your car's going to catch on fire and you're going to die, or the battery.
That's what my family thought, like, oh, EVs blow up. I'm like, you guys just read these headlines and see these pictures, and you were so uninformed. It's crazy.
My mother-in-law, like, she freaked out when we got this, and she didn't even know what a Tesla looked like, honestly. And so we educated her some on it. And then she's very, very conservative. And with Elon Musk supporting Trump and doing all these things, it'll be interesting to see if we see that shift as far as buyers. I'm seeing a lot more people pro Elon Musk, because I have a lot of conservative friends and family members, including my mother-in-law. She randomly, unprompted, out of the blue, just texted and said something like, I'm beginning to see why you like Elon Musk, or something like that. And I'm like, okay, so Tesla next for you, maybe?
My grandmother was the exact same way. Massive Trump fan, hated EVs, and then goes, oh, I love Elon. I'm like, it's hilarious what happens when you change your political stance.
It really is. It's sad, like, honestly, but
it is sad, honestly. Yeah, it is sad.
In both directions. I don't understand people who associate those things. Like, I don't know. I don't want to support this person because of their views. I saw it with so many things, like the CEO of Hims posting about the war, and people are like, let's boycott this. It's like, guys, or an actor or a musician does something, and they're like, I'm not listening to anything that they have created ever. If you enjoy the product, you use the product. And you, like, Tesla is like, tens of thousands of employees in addition to one person. Like, I think it's somewhat disingenuous for you, first of all, to deny yourself a superior product, and second of all, to attribute the entirety of that company to one person's political views, or what one person posts on Twitter while he's taking a shit at 3 a.m. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's stupid. I don't know.
Yeah, I think people just need to feel like they have an identity and that they belong to something. And I think that's the sad part.
That's a sense of entitlement, though, right? Like,
for sure.
I'm not going to give my money to this person. And it's like, yeah, sure, you're free to do that, absolutely, but I think it's crazy to think that you're going to make such a big difference. That I think with woke culture, like, people have made an impact. Like, the small minority of voices have caused companies, like, the latest one I remember is Apple taking down their commercial of what was it, the iPad or whatever, where they were crushing instruments with
I saw that,
one of those presses, because apparently it was not it was not respectful to creators and musicians and whatnot. And I'm like, guys, like, seriously. And because the companies respond to that small minority, then these people are like, oh yeah, but in reality, it's not really going to make a dent to the bottom line of these companies. Or I saw it with Netflix too. Like, who was it? The founder of Netflix invested to Kamala, or he donated or whatever. And then people were boycotting Netflix. And look at Netflix's subscriber chart and tell me where you think it was that, people were doing that boycott. It's literally like a blip.
Yeah.
So I don't know. All you're doing is you're denying yourself a better product. And if that feeling of like, hey, I made a difference in the world trumps that feeling of you having the best product out there, then by all means do it. I'm not judging you or anybody for it. I'm just saying that I think it's overblown.
Big race comment.
But
like the EV, I got into it. The Tesla, the driving experience is amazing. The price point was amazing for us. The low maintenance and low cost to operate. That's why I got into it. The helping the environment part, is like, that's cool too, but I would never buy a car for that. Some people do, and that's fine. It's individual consumers can make those decisions. On that note, any final thoughts before we wrap?
Holy crap, it's been 2 hours. That's crazy. Nothing on my end.
No, nothing on my. I'm just reading the comments now. I'm trying to actually have sophisticated takes, and these animals are just commenting this. Anyways, it's been a great episode. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. But we will catch you. Roy, you won't be around tomorrow for hymns, will you?
Correct. Yeah, my wife and I have that getaway. So,
got it. We will catch you next week on Bootleg Weekly, where I have to wake up again at 7 a.m. So, forward to that, guys. See ya.
Peace, everyone.